Welcome back to the MHSNews album review podcast. My name is Jack, and today I am going to be reviewing the album Familia by Camila Cabello. This is Camila's third studio album since she left Fifth Harmony a few years back. And this album is her most critically acclaimed to date as of now. The album only came out about a week ago. So it came out April 8th, 2022. This album has 12 songs on it, and I think that this album gets a little bit more personal than the last two records that she's put out. So I kind of just want to get into it really quickly because there's a lot of tracks to go through, and I think there's a lot of different stylistic choices that I think are very interesting for this record. This album is very, very much about her own personal and cultural identity. The album itself is called Familia. Camila is a Cuban American. There's a lot of Spanish influence on this album. There are multiple songs that are sung in Spanish on here, so this is definitely her most Latin-inspired work to date. The album opens up with about like a 25-second long intro called Familia. It's really just a bunch of horn sections. It's kind of like a good starting point to the album. I think that it kind of sets the tone, and it really feels very theatrical kind of going into this record. The first song that actually has words is called Celia. This is a song that's in Spanish entirely. And I think that overall, for the record, this one continues to set the tone. I really like the transition between Familia, the instrumental opener for the album, into the song itself. I think that it's a really great way to start the album. I'm not really 100% sure what the storyline totally is because it is in Spanish and I don't really speak fluent Spanish. But I really like the vibe of this song. I think that it's a really nice way to kind of open up the record. The next song, though, is one of my absolute favorites. It's called Psycho Freak, and this one is a collaboration with Willow Smith. I think their voices blend together in a way that I did not expect. This was a song that was announced about like a week or so before the album came out, so I was looking at the track list before it came out, and I really thought that this one was going to be either very, very good or kind of like a miss, because I wasn't really sure how their voices were going to blend together. Willow is kind of known for a lot more of a rock sound, kind of, or like a punk rock sound, and Camila Cabello is pretty much a pop artist through and through, and I think their voices tend to go really well together. I love the back and forth on this track. Lyrically, this song is talking a lot about anxiety and things like that, and I think that as artists, both Camila and Willow have been in the public eye since they were both really young. I think that they were a perfect pair to choose for a song like this. Next up, we have one of the singles from the record. It's called Bom Bom. This one is featuring Ed Sheeran, okay? And personally, I think Ed Sheeran is fine. I think he's really talented musically. He's just not one of my favorite artists. And I think that this song in general would have been better as a solo track, honestly. I think the chorus is super fun. I think it, again, continues to kind of set the tone for the record because, we're still in the first couple of minutes of the album at this point. And I think lyrically it's fine. I think it suits the purpose of being a radio single. And I think that Ed Sheeran was added on there because he is such a big artist and he pulls in such large numbers. I just don't think that his inclusion was really necessary for this album as a whole. And I don't know if his voice or his or if he just fits into this cast of collaborators on this album as well as I'd hoped. But the song is fine. I don't skip it when it comes on, but it's not my favorite or the one that I come back to the most. Next up, we have album highlight for me. This one is called La Buena Vida. This song is one of the first times when I was listening to the album for the first time, or I was kind of just moving around and like dancing around like in my seat. Like, I really, really love this song. I love the backing vocals. This one is very, very Latin inspired if you couldn't tell by the title. This one kind of thematically kind of goes through a relationship and it kind of the ups and downs and things and talking about how she thinks she deserves more than what she's getting from a relationship. I love the instrumentals on this album. The percussion on this record is like no other that she's ever put out before. Romance, which was her second album, is an album that I really loved so much. It had a lot of string arrangements on it. This one is a lot more percussion heavy, it's a lot more horns heavy, and I really, really like it. It's very, very Latin infused, so if that's something you're into, I definitely recommend checking this record out. I really, really like this song. Next up, we have Quiet. This is one where my first listen to it, I was like, this is something that I don't think I've ever really heard from Camila Cabello, and it's one that I really, really appreciate as a whole. It's just one that I really, really appreciate all in all. This is one that I think would be a wonderful single. I think that this one is emotional and vulnerable, and it really is a very intimate song. I think that vocally, this is one of, if not the best vocal performances on the record. Closer to the end of it, there's this entire section that the music kind of strips back, and it's more of just her vocals shining and harmonizing. and it's a really, really beautiful track. Next up, we have Boys Don't Cry. This is the one that I think has grown on me the most in the past week. I've been pretty much listening to this record nonstop since it came out. And this one, at first, I thought it was fine, but I was listening to it yesterday, right before I knew I was going to have to film this podcast today. And it kind of hit me in a different way. This one talks a lot about the fragility of male emotions, and it kind of about how, she's trying to be vulnerable with someone. It's definitely more about a relationship setting, but I think you can apply this to a lot of other things. When it's hard to be emotionally vulnerable with someone who has been conditioned from a young age that, they have to be strong, they have to be tough, they can't show their emotions, which is something that I think happens to a lot of men in society. This one's extremely relatable. And I think, again, this is another vocal highlight on the record. This album is a lot more intimate and personal, I think, than any other record that she's put out before, and I think it really shows, and I think that that's what fans have been getting from this record. Next up, we have Hasta Los Dientes. This is a collaboration with, I believe, Camila Cabello is how you say her name. This song also is a highlight for me. Again, this one's entirely in Spanish, so I don't know, every single thing about this song. I don't really know exactly everything that she's saying. However, I think that the beats and the instruments on this are some of the most fun on the entire record. Even if I don't understand what she's saying the entire time, it's really pretty much impossible to just not have fun when listening to a song like this, and it's one of my favorites. Next up, we have No Doubt, another Latin-influenced song. This one is, again, really, really exciting, really fun. I love the chorus, and there's this kind of like repetition that goes through all the way out, where she just goes, that, that. And it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's really, really fun to listen to. It's really hard to kind of put into words until you're actually there, listening to the song. And it's one that I definitely recommend checking out. Next up, we have the lead single for the album, which is Don't Go Yet. This was, I think, the perfect choice for a lead single when it comes to this record. I have been listening to this song all the time since it came out, pretty much, I think, last September, and it seriously has not gotten old for me. A lot of albums that I listened to recently, the lead singles are still kind of up there as far as my album ranking goes. A lot of the times, the lead single kind of gets overplayed and things like that, but I think that this one in particular really, really sets the tone for the album. Not in a way like Celia or Psycho Freak does on this record, where it's like, kind of getting into the themes of the album. I think that this song, Don't Go Yet, really encapsulates the feeling of the album. It is very, very heavily inspired by Latin music. It's very danceable, it's fun, the chorus is infectious, it's very catchy, and I honestly think that this is still a highlight from the record, even though it came out months and months before. The second to last song on the album is called Lola. This is one that is another feature with, I believe his name is Utel. This is another one that's kind of in Spanish for the most part. This one follows the story about a girl named Lola who has big dreams, and she's really talented, but she is kind of... She's not very privileged in a lot of ways. She has a lot of hardships in life and with her family, and her talent kind of isn't really able to shine because, she is born into such a really difficult space. I think that as an album, we find Camila exploring storylines and things in a way that I don't think we have before, and I think that this song right here is a perfect way to showcase that. It's not one of my top favorite songs off of the album, but I understand why it's there. I understand the appeal of this song, and I appreciate the fact that it was put on here. The final track on this album is Everyone at This Party, which is stylized in all lowercase, and I think that's for a reason. This is the most vulnerable track on the album. This one, again, with Quiet, I think it is the other most vocally impressive song on the entire project. I think that this is kind of the main song on the album where she pretty much lyrically references her very, very public breakup with fellow singer Shawn Mendes. They were together for, I believe, 2 years, and they lived together. They have a dog together, and they broke up pretty publicly last year. I know that they still remain friends and things like that, but this song is very, very vulnerable. She's speaking about her relationship and talking about why it ended. One of my favorite lyrics from this is, "Did you get the space that you needed? Did you realize you don't need me? Because everyone at this party isn't you." This song kind of follows, the narrative of her being at a party, being at an event with a lot of people where she's supposed to be happy, and the one person that she really wants to see the most, she's not around anymore. It's very reminiscent of The Moment I Knew by Taylor Swift. It's not the exact kind of same thing, But as far as vulnerability goes and just the kind of storyline, I think that they kind of go along very similarly. This is another one that I think is definitely a highlight from this record, and I think that it really ends the album in a really great way. You know, this album, all in all, is about herself. It's about her life. It's about her family, the people that she loves. It's about her experiences. And I think that more than any other album, we're really kind of getting to see a different side of her that I think that she has kind of not shown before, which as a fan is something that I know I really appreciate. I don't know if this is my favorite Camila Cabello album yet. It's either this one or Romance, but it is a really great record. I think it should be getting a lot more recognition. So if anything that I've said interests you, I definitely recommend giving this album a listen. It's very, very heavily Latin influenced. It's danceable. It's fun. There's emotional vulnerability, but all in all, I think this record is super fun to listen to, and I definitely recommend checking it out. So thank you so much for listening to the album review podcast today. The links and everything to check out the album will be down in the description below. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.